I think of salads as what's best and brightest in fruits and vegetables, grains, legumes, seafood, even meat. Ingredients that are so good, you want to do what you can to showcase them with a minimum of fuss and manipulation. Now, maybe this is a good time to explain to you that if you're like other fledgling cooks, you'll seek out to master the most complicated recipes you can as proof positive of your burgeoning skills. Then, as you make more progress, you'll come to realize that it's simplicity that is the hallmark of great cooking. You search out great ingredients, you honor their intrinsic flavor, texture, and color, you do what you can to stay out of the way of their goodness. That's how I think of salads. So, shall we do a little cooking? Take a look here. I've got some beautiful lettuces, a nice selection I picked up at the farmer's market. I've got bitter greens. I've got frisee here, dandelion greens, maybe the bitterest of all. And then I've got mild greens, a little lolo rosso. I've got little gem lettuces. This is a heart of romaine. Back here, escarole, which tends to be a little bit bitter. And then a leaf lettuce hiding in the back. All of these are great lettuces, but because they have different flavors and different intensities of flavor, they will demand different dressings and different applications. So I'm going to set this aside. Today, to begin, I'd like to make a salad with a mild green. This is a butter lettuce, and I've got two examples here actually. I've got this one which has been soaking in ice water now for about 20 minutes, and then this one which is actually hydroponically grown, and if you look at the bottom, you can see that the roots are still intact. With a little bit of water in this clamshell container, this will actually be alive and living for about 3 weeks. It'll cost you a lot of money, probably 3 or 4 times as much as this, but the lesson here is simply that quality matters when it comes to lettuce. So take a look at this head. On the outside are what I call wrapper leaves, leaves that are there to actually protect the lettuce. And they will likely be a little bit bruised and should be discarded. I'll take those and set them aside. And then I'm going to cut the core out of this lettuce. Now, there's a myth out there that you can tear lettuce and smack it on the counter to knock the core out. I would say cut it out and try to be gentle with this lettuce. Otherwise, it'll get bruised. With the core out, I can separate it into leaves. And what you'll see here is a beautiful head of lettuce. I soak it in ice water because it will help the lettuce crisp up. What you should know is that lettuce is somewhere between 90 and 95% water. So even a small loss in moisture means that it gets limp and begins to wilt. And you can bring it back by soaking it in ice water. If I'm making a salad for dinner, this is one of the first things I will do. I will wash the lettuce in cold, cold water, and then I'll take it out. I'll either blot it dry with towels or spin it dry. And make sure you heard me. I will take it from the water so that any dirt that was on this lettuce, which has fallen to the bottom, will stay on the bottom. Too many people, I think, wash lettuce and then dump the whole thing into a colander and in effect just pour the dirt right back on top of the lettuce. So lift it out of the water and then either blot it dry or perhaps you have a salad spinner which will spin and the centrifugal force will throw the water off the lettuce. I'm going to set this one aside because I have some lettuce here that not only has been soaked, but also washed, spun dry, and then I put it in the refrigerator for about an hour. I would say that's minimum. At the end of an hour, the lettuce will be nice and fresh and crisp and ready to go. This particular salad I like to think of as a traditional bistro salad. And it not only has butter lettuce, but a nice selection of what I know as fine herbs. The French call them fines herbes. They make a distinction in France between herbs that are delicate and tender, like parsley, tarragon, chervil, and chives. These are the classic fines herbes. and other herbs which tend to be a little bit more resinous, like thyme and bay and oregano. So these are the delicate fine herbs, and we'll put those in our salad in just a second. I also have the ingredients here to make a quick dressing, and let's get that started. In goes some Dijon mustard. This will act as an emulsifier to hold together oil and vinegar. Oil and liquid don't like one another. And I'm going to add some shallots as well. In goes vinegar. The proportion is 1 part vinegar to 3 parts oil. That's a pretty standard proportion. The only time I vary that proportion is if I go out and I spend a lot of money for really good oil and I want the oil to play a starring role. So as an example, I might buy a really good buttery olive oil and then use that 4 or even 5 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. So it can dissolve. I'm going to add some salt, and I'll add pepper as well. And then we're going to drizzle oil in while we whip. Little by little. If it ever starts looking greasy, it's time to slow down and not add the oil so quickly. Another way to do this is to put it all into a canning jar, put the lid on, and shake it like a madman, and it will emulsify. There's an old adage in the French kitchen that when you are making a salad, that you want to be a madman with the whip, you want to be a spendthrift with the oil, you want to be a miser with the vinegar. Okay. What you should know about vinaigrettes is that inasmuch as lettuce is 95% water, you need a fairly strong vinaigrette if it's going to make all of that lettuce taste delicious. So if it tastes great right off the spoon, chances are it's not assertive enough. If it bites a little bit, then I think you're on the right track. And that's exactly where I'm at with this vinaigrette. Let me gather up some herbs here for our salad. First, I'm going to chop some flat leaf parsley. I think this has the best flavor of all the parsleys. And I'm going to chop it fairly coarsely and set it aside. And then I'm going to take some chives. And those are going to get chopped as well. We'll move that aside. Then some tarragon. Tarragon has a wonderful anisey flavor, and I'm going to strip the leaves from the tarragon. We don't want to overdo it because it can be pretty powerful. And just 1 or 2 cuts so that it stays in big pieces, I think, is nice. And then finally, chervil. Chervil is an interesting herb. It's very, very delicate, and I'm going to pluck it from the stem. So here's our bowl. I have the lettuce that's been dried. I'm going to add it in whole leaves. This is a fun presentation because we're going to use a whole leaf presentation. Some people will tell you that lettuce should be torn, and the reason for tearing is that it looks more organic or more natural. In restaurants, oftentimes they will cut lettuce. For me, I just love this idea of taking it apart in whole leaves and then putting it back together again. Here, all the herbs make their way in. Dress it lightly with the vinaigrette, just to barely coat the lettuce. And what I want to do is take some of the larger leaves and put them on the bottom and, in effect, rebuild this head of lettuce. You can let the color of the leaves sort of guide you. Darker to lighter. And then often I will go back with just a little bit of this delicate chervil and put some of the chervil right on top of the salad, undressed so that it doesn't mat together at all. And it gives a wonderful, delicate appearance to this salad that belies how much delicious flavor it has. Okay, so there is our bistro salad with butter lettuce and fine herbs. Having made a salad from a very mild butter lettuce, let's go to the other end of the spectrum and make a salad from bitter greens. I've got some bitter Belgian endive right here, and let's talk a little bit about it. Belgian endive is the sprout of a brand new head of lettuce. It overwinters as a root, and then when the weather turns warm, this is what you see. If you grow it in the dark, it will be blanched like this and not turn green. So commercially, they save the roots in refrigeration, and then when they need Belgian endive, they plant the roots, bring the temperature up, but keep the light down, and you end up with something like this. They protect it from light, so when you purchase it, it typically is wrapped in an opaque paper that keeps it from turning green. When you store this, protecting it from light, if you're not going to use it in a day or two, is an important idea. The other thing I want to tell you about storing lettuces or leafy greens in general is that there are fruits that give off a hormone, ethylene gas. And ethylene will make leafy greens turn brown. So in your refrigerator, you have two drawers, both of them ostensibly for produce. Put your fruit to one side and your leafy greens to the other, and you won't have any problem with ethylene taking your leafy greens and turning them brown. All right, so we're going to make a salad with Belgian endive. I want it to be more assertive to stand up to the bitterness of those greens, and so we're going to use toasted walnuts and Roquefort cheese, a sheep's milk cheese with plenty of flavor. To begin with, I want to make a dressing, and the dressing is going to start with some cheese. I'll put that in and just break it up into pieces. And then I have some tarragon right here. Tarragon goes in as well. Let's put in some lemon juice. And we'll do what we can to get rid of the lemon seeds. Although 1 or 2 means that you're using fresh lemon, and you should be proud of that. Salt and pepper. And now we need to make a choice on oils. I'm going to use a combination of oils. I've got an olive oil, fairly mild olive oil, but then a walnut oil. This is a toasted nut oil. It's very, very powerful flavored. It's perishable. So be careful when you buy it. Once you've opened the container, it should be stored in the refrigerator. And try and buy it in small quantities so that you can use it up in 2 or 3 months. So I'm going to add some walnut oil and an equal amount of olive oil. And I think just a little bit more lemon juice, and then we'll stir this all together. All right. Now the cheese, if I break it down a little bit, it'll start to make an emulsified creamy dressing. But I want 1 or 2 big pieces. I think that's important. I'm going to add walnuts to this salad, probably not quite that many, and let's just chop them coarsely. I'd love to be able to recognize what they are. Now, finally, the endive. I'm going to take this end off and discard that. If you like, you can break it apart into whole leaves and do a whole leaf presentation, as we did earlier, or we can cut it. And since we did a whole leaf presentation before, I'm going to cut this into pieces. There is a core that runs down the center, and so you want that core to come out. There we are. This can begin to brown if you cut it too early. The reason it browns is that there are enzymes that once they're exposed to air will begin to turn color, just the way an apple might turn color once you've cut that. If you wash this in cold water, that will wash some of those enzymes away from the surface and it will become less of an issue. Otherwise, just cut it and make your salad right away and you should be fine. Okay, let's put these greens in. You know, when you see the amount of vegetable that we're tossing in this dressing, you recognize how the dressing has to be assertive. Otherwise, it won't taste quite right. Be gentle with the greens. Let's see how it tastes. I think we're ready to go. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Some of these whole leaves that I have, I'm going to put those to the bottom. And then right on top, we'll mound the endive that I've cut. The nice thing about a salad like this is that the cheese and the walnuts tend to sink to the bottom, and so when you put this onto the plate, they're waiting for you as a garnish on the top of the salad. So, a bitter green salad, Belgian endive with walnuts, but most importantly with walnut oil. Try this because I think you're going to be a big fan. Next, we're going to jump to Asia and make a handheld salad, a Vietnamese salad roll with a dipping sauce that's kind of a new spin on dressing. absolutely fat-free. So I'm going to start with the dressing. This is a dressing called Nuuk Cham, and I've got some Thai bird chilies here that I want to cut up as fine as I possibly can. These are spicy, and because they're so spicy, I want to get the chili in little tiny pieces. So I'm cutting straight across. I'm not going to try and take the seeds out. When you have a chili like this, about 60% of the heat of a chili is in the ribs of that chili. 20% is in the seeds, and the balance, the last 20%, is in the flesh. But because these are so small, seeding it and cutting the ribs out is not really very practical. So we'll just cut it up as fine as we can. So there we have it. Now, this dressing starts with garlic and chilies, and I'll put both of those together in there. And I'm going to add fish sauce. Fish sauce is a condiment from Southeast Asia, and it's kind of a surprising condiment. It's got a lot of flavor. It smells very, very fishy. And what I'd like to do, and maybe this is the most important part of this, is tell you just how to work with fish sauce. So the first thing I want to do, and I would encourage you to do this as well, just taste it. It's very, very salty. You want to find balance between the saltiness of that fish sauce and sugar. And I want to add sugar until I can taste sweetness and saltiness, but neither predominates. And it might surprise you to see how much sugar it actually takes. Okay, we're good there. Next, I want to lift or brighten that flavor. So now it tastes salty and sweet, very, very intense, very concentrated. I want to lift the flavor with lime juice, make it bright suddenly. And I have some lime juice squeezed here already. So now we're finding a nice balance between salt and sweet and acid. Make sure that all the sugar is dissolved. And what you start to recognize is the fish sauce has this wonderful savory flavor. It kind of makes your mouth water. I'm going to thin it out so it's not quite so intense with a little bit of water. And then by way of a garnish, I have some carrot that was sliced very, very thin. And that is the entire dressing. This is the Nuuk Cham, the Vietnamese dipping sauce. I'll set the sauce aside, and we can make the salad rolls. And I've got all the ingredients laid out here. I've got fresh herbs, lettuce, shrimp, carrots. But let me tell you a little bit about rice noodles and rice papers. And I have them right here. First, the rice noodles. These are noodles that are made by taking a batter of rice flour and water and extruding it into boiling water. And they cook. Later on, they're dried. And you cook them as you would pasta. I have some cooked here already. They take about 4 minutes. Sometimes they're called rice vermicelli. Just make sure that you don't confuse these rice noodles with bean thread noodles or cellophane noodles, which when they cook are perfectly clear. These are rice noodles. So I've got those cooked and set aside. And then here I have rice papers. Now, rice papers are made with a batter of rice flour and water, and they spread it over a piece of linen that is stretched over the top of a boiling pot. And as the steam passes through the linen, it cooks the crepe that rests on the top. And when it's cooked, they peel it off, and very, very delicately, they place it onto a bamboo mat in the sun to dry. And if you look carefully, you can see the design left behind by the bamboo mat that it dried on. Inasmuch as this has been cooked already, I simply need to rehydrate this. And so I'm going to put these into warm water. There's 4. That'll get us started. And on the cutting board, I'm going to spread a dampened piece of cheesecloth. This could be a kitchen towel as easily, but what this does is it prevents the rice papers from actually sitting in water, which is a little bit of a problem because then they over soften and can tear. Now, if I were writing this recipe right now, I would suggest that patience is one of the ingredients for this recipe. I want these rice papers to begin to soften and lose their leathery feel, and then they can continue softening right here on this damp cloth. So this has lost its leathery feel. Maybe I'll put one more in. And little by little, it will absorb all of the surface moisture, and it will go dry and become a little bit sticky. That's exactly what you want. And it takes time. If at any point you decide it's still a little bit too dry, you can always sprinkle a little bit more moisture on there. Again, as I'm doing this, I feel the surface of it, and if it feels leathery and hard, I want to rehydrate it a little bit more. Once it becomes flexible, not soft, but flexible, then I can take it out and I'll finish rehydrating it over on the cutting board. Now, this one here is just starting to become sticky, so I think we're in good shape. So we have to build our salad rolls. And I would begin with something brightly colored, like a lettuce leaf. And I put that lettuce leaf at the bottom third of the rice paper. And make sure that you leave behind the hard ribs. We don't need those, just the tender lettuce. Bottom third. There we are. And then think about color as you're building these. So if I have white of the rice paper and then the green, I'm going to go back to white here. I'm going to take some rice noodles and gather them up. And those can be put right on top of the lettuce. If we consider color once again, I'm going to put some carrot, just so that it stays nice and brightly colored. This is a julienne of carrot, and it's just been blanched very, very shortly, so it's not too hard. Just cooked in a little bit of boiling water. And then fresh herbs are a big part of Vietnamese food. So I'm going to lay on basil leaves. Fresher the better. Likewise, I'm going to put mint leaves on here. And a little bit of cilantro. As I say, fresh herbs are a very, very important part of this dish, so make sure that you have good quality herbs. The only thing that remains is to put shrimp on here, and I'm not going to put it on just yet, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to roll this up and compact the filling, and then when I've gone around once, I'm going to add the shrimp with the colorful side to the outside so that the colorful shrimp shows. And then I'm going to carry on rolling. When I get to the thickest part, I'm going to fold the edges in, and then off we go. So there's one done. Let me go ahead and do another. Compact the filling, and bring the wrapper up and over. Put the shrimp with the colorful side down. And I'm using 3 half shrimp per salad roll. And then, as you get to the thickest part, fold the ends in. And what you'll notice is that they stick to themselves pretty easily. Now, these can be stored probably at room temperature. If you have to refrigerate them, just be careful to cover them maybe with a damp towel just like that, so that the rice papers don't begin to dry out. All right, we're going to present our salad rolls. The dipping sauce is an integral part of this dish, so make sure that everybody realizes that they have to dip the salad rolls into this dipping sauce. When you cut these, I'm going to recommend that you not cut them on a diagonal or a bias, but instead cut them straight across, because if you cut them on a diagonal, very often they will come undone. So cut them straight across, and I like to set them up an end like this so that you can see the filling. So if you take a look, we've got the salad rolls with the dipping sauce, a great little appetizer hors d'oeuvre. It's really a salad, but it's a handheld salad, and it's interactive. If you like it spicy, a little bit more dipping sauce. Not so spicy, go a little bit lighter. And what you'll discover is that you get this wonderful aroma that is fresh herbs, mint, cilantro, basil. This is really a delicious salad. I'm going to make a delicious salad that would make a nice light lunch or even a light dinner. Salad doesn't have to be something that comes before an entree. It can be an entree. This is an Asian salad, Southeast Asian salad. I call it chicken, shrimp, and fruit salad. And let me show you a technique up front where I'm going to take the segments out of an orange. So top and bottom come off so it sits flat. And then with your knife, peel away the rind so that you expose the meat. I'm going to take my knife and cut between the membranes. And once you've got the first segment out, cut down one side, turn the knife, and the membrane should peel away from the other side. Cut down, turn the knife, and peel away the segment. Okay, so a chicken, shrimp, and fruit salad. This is where the fruit begins. Let me show you what the rest of the fruit is. I have green apples, nice tart green apples that I'm going to add. A few more orange segments, or what I call orange supremes. And then here are red and green grapes, both seedless, that have been cut in half. The protein that's going in here is chicken that's simply poached and shredded, and shrimp as well. Now the dressing. It's not uncommon in Southeast Asia that the dressing won't have any oil at all. This particular salad is no exception to that rule. I'm going to take some hot chilies. These are Serrano chilies, and I took the seeds and the ribs out. Some people don't like their food overly spicy, and so that will tone it down a good deal. Here is some cilantro that's chopped. I'm going to add peanuts, dry roasted peanuts, and a couple of really interesting ingredients. This is shallot and garlic, both of them sliced. They've both been fried, and I fried them very, very slowly at about 250 degrees so that the water could cook out of them before they began browning. And the way you know the water is cooked out is because the bubbling stops happening in the pan. So fry them gently. When the bubbling stops, then they can brown. You can see the shallots have a nice golden color. The garlic, I'm careful not to fry any more than just a pale, pale golden, because it will turn bitter if you're not careful. So don't overcook it. Now, the dressing for our salad. Well, I have lime juice here, and we're going to balance the acidity of this lime juice with sugar, and then we're going to add salt. So 2 or 3 tablespoons of lime juice is going to go in. And then some sugar and some salt. It's a beautiful salad to look at. Just incredible colors. You look at it and you know it's going to be juicy and delicious because of all that wonderful ripe fruit. And there's a little savory edge that comes from the garlic and the shallots. If you're going to keep this for a while, I would gather all the ingredients together but not dress it until just before you're ready to serve. I think that's the best way to approach it. And then, I think just a branch or two of cilantro. This salad is ready to go. Chicken, shrimp, and fruit salad with a fat-free dressing that is lime juice, sugar, and salt.